Black Templars are a second founding chapter derived from the Imperial Fists. Since its founding, the Black Templars have campaigned on a never-ending crusade and have one of the most unique cultures and structures amongst any of the Adeptus Astartes. The Black Templars' history begins before their foundation, during the Horus Heresy. During the Siege of Terra, the Imperial Fists Legion was heavily involved in the loyalist defense of the Sol system. When Horus's assault broke through to the Imperial Palace, the Imperial Fists Primarch, Rogel Dawn, appointed his first captain, Sigismund, to the war zone. Here he gained an immense repertoire as both a swordsman and a tactician, slaying the chosen heretic Khan and repelling countless chaos incursions. Despite this, the Imperials were slowly losing, and the Emperor was forced to attack Horus personally, where he was successful but gravely wounded and entombed upon the Golden Throne. Nonetheless, Sigismund had grown famed not only amongst his brothers, but also amongst the nascent human cults of the Emperor, who had been pivotal in the insurgency against the traitor occupation of the planet. After the Horus Heresy, Guilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, ordered the breakdown of the Space Marine legions into chapters as part of his new Codex Astartes. Dawn thought Guilliman a coward for not being there during the defense of Terra and was fiercely committed to keeping his many sons unified under one command. Guilliman, in turn, thought Dawn a rebel for refusing to accept the dictates of his authority and wanted to ensure another heresy could never happen again by decentralizing the power of the Astartes. Neither would give in. Leman Russ of the Space Wolves and Vulcan of the Salamanders both sided with Dawn, as they did not want their legions divided, while Korax of the Raven Guard and Jagatai Khan of the White Scars sided with Guilliman. Again, civil war threatened to split the Imperium. The Imperial Fists were persecuted for their so-called heresies and even fired upon by the Imperial Navy. However, just when civil war seemed to be inevitable, Dawn finally relented and agreed to split his legion. The first successor chapters created from the Imperial Fists were the Crimson Fists and the Black Templars. It is in this milieu that the Black Templars came to be. Sigismund was to lead the more zealous of the Imperial Fists with him to the founding of the Black Templars, becoming their first High Marshal. Sigismund swore an oath upon leaving Terra that he and his new chapter would prove their loyalty by never resting in their duties against enemies of the Emperor. As the Great Scouring drove the heretics out of the Imperium, Sigismund spent much of this time remaining vigilant over the Cadian Gate, insisting that Horus's traitors would one day return to plague the Imperium. Despite the dismissals of many Imperial officials, Sigismund was proven right when Abaddon returned in the First Black Crusade. The Black Templar fleet was waiting, and a massive battle erupted that saw Sigismund slain by Abaddon himself. As his former brother knelt above his broken body, he confided in him that he regretted that he had had to kill him. However, the High Marshal Sigismund rebuked him, simply declaring,
"You will die as your weakling father died, soulless, honorless, weeping, ashamed,"
before finally dying. Since his death, every High Marshal of the Black Templars has renewed Sigismund's oath of never-ending crusade, and as such, the chapter's crusade has officially continued for over 10,000 years. Due to their somewhat unique founding, the Templars have developed one of the most unique and divergent cultures of any Astartes chapter. They are among one of the rarer chapters that worship the Emperor of Mankind as a god and follow the Imperial Creed, in defiance to most other chapters who still follow the secular Imperial truth. By their doctrine, the Templars abhor the traitor, the alien, and the mutant. The last category includes psychers, whom they harbor a particular disgust for and persecute. At some point, this distaste grew to include their own librarians, as the Templars uniquely field no librarians amongst their ranks. In spite of this, they do use some psychers in non-combat roles, such as astropaths and navigators. However, the Black Templars view these beings with special reverence, as they see them as able to commune directly with the Emperor, and thus exempt from the normal repulsiveness of mutation. Culturally, the Templars place great emphasis on close combat prowess and honor. As such, they rarely shirk challenges and can often be seen charging into what some would consider suicidal situations to avenge fallen comrades. Their Marines also set themselves apart from standard Codex doctrine by including neophytes into squads of fully initiated Marines to help teach them the ways of battle and the art of combat. This is not the only way the chapter shirks the Codex Astartes. Inheriting the distrust for Guilliman's Codex, the Black Templars are also notorious for defying its doctrine that states that a chapter may only number 1,000 battle brothers. This is partly due to the divided nature of the chapter being spread out everywhere on separate crusades and thus being unable to keep track of their exact numbers. However, it is also speculated that this is a purposeful design of the chapter, with them using a combination of the crusade clause of the Codex Astartes, which states that a crusading chapter may have more than 1,000 Marines, and the fact that they are always technically on crusade to ignore the doctrinal size limits. Regardless, the Templars are forced to remain in compliance with the Inquisition, who broadly enforce the Codex and as such rarely mass any of their forces together. The Black Templars are not organized like a typical Codex chapter, instead operating many roaming crusade fleets that prosecute campaigns across the galaxy. These crusades are in turn typically broken down into fighting companies, which may number from a few dozen to 100 Space Marines, as well as their vehicles and support. In their unique hierarchy, the High Marshal is the equivalent of a chapter master. He is responsible for monitoring the progress of all current crusades. Below him, each crusade is led by a marshal, chosen amongst the Sword Brethren during ritual combat and confirmed by the High Marshal. Only once was this approval known to be withheld during the Gervart repeal of M36. On especially momentous occasions, marshals may meet with the High Marshal aboard the Eternal Crusader to hold a chapter council. Below the marshals are castellans, who command the fighting companies and act as their commander's lieutenants. These figures are also charged with the rule of active chapter keeps and of occupied worlds. In addition to the general structure of the chapter, there exists a special rank, that of the Emperor's Champion. An Emperor's Champion is selected on the eve of a battle, just as Sigismund was. The Champion is an initiate who will have experienced a vision of the Emperor. When he reports this to the chaplains, they will anoint him and gift him with the finest weapons and armor available, known as the Black Sword and the Armor of Faith. These may vary from fighting company to fighting company. While the Black Templars employ standard Codex formations such as intercessors, aggressors, and eliminators, they also utilize specialized non-Codex forces known collectively as Crusader Squads. Crusader Squads are made up of raw recruit neophytes, rank-and-file initiates, and elite sword brethren. These squads often form strong bonds, and it is not uncommon for Black Templars to remain in them even upon becoming veterans. Initiates will sometimes spend decades or even centuries in their role, whereas battle brothers in conventional chapters tend to progress through the ranks steadily. The Black Templars see initiates as walking their own path, and only an initiate himself and the Emperor may determine how he wields his skills in defense of mankind. However, as the years pass, most initiates develop new skills and specialities, often taking on more specialized roles such as assault marines, incursors, aggressors, and so on. Others choose to ride and pilot vehicles or don Invicta warsuits. After especially notable victories or harrowing trials, initiates are often given battle honors, relics, and other such awards. Eventually, they will obtain the rank of veteran, which is bestowed independently by a chaplain or castellan, or even a fellow veteran. Veterans are excused from the duty of training neophytes and will often be deployed in specialized veteran formations such as Blade Guard, Stern Guard, Terminators, Veteran Intercessors, and so on. Meanwhile, specialists such as chaplains, tech marines, and apothecaries are organized centrally and dispatched to various crusade fleets as needed. Regarding these fleets, unlike many other chapters, the Black Templars do not have a homeworld, instead opting to collectively live aboard their crusade fleets. These vary in size and are made up of dozens of battle barges, strike cruisers, and other craft such as training vessels and huge forged ships. Given this fleet-based nature, the Black Templars are rarely assembled as a chapter, but are instead divided into many crusades, every crusade being responsible for its own recruiting as well as training of new neophytes. This flexible, mobile nature allows the Templars to continue the first mission of their chapter, to actively seek out the enemies of the Emperor and destroy them before moving onwards to find the next foe. The exact number of crusade fleets active at any one time, as well as the size of the individual fleets, varies according to the chapter's needs and abilities. The exact size of crusade fleets varies, with some numbering a handful of warriors, while others may even number thousands. However, the typical size of a crusade fleet is between 50 and 300 warriors. The High Marshal himself has his own personal battle barge, the Eternal Crusader. The Eternal Crusader is one part flagship and one part command center, serving as both a powerful naval asset and the seat from which the chapter is governed. It is a huge vessel that is the spiritual home of the entire chapter and contains its most sacred relics, chapels, and reliquaries. It has been expanded and refitted many times and currently has extra docking facilities for escorts, additional launch bays for shuttles and Thunderhawks, and accommodation for twice as many Space Marines as a normal battle barge. After the fall of Cadia, the Black Templars found themselves spread across the galaxy as the Great Rift opened. Their decentralized nature was turned into a major vulnerability as the Rift severed contact with large portions of Imperial territory. By the end of the Noctis Aeterna, several crusades were discovered to have vanished altogether, while even those within the Imperium Sanctus found themselves scattered. Rather than using the reactivation of the Astronomicon as a reprieve to consolidate and recuperate, the Black Templars instead continued to abide by their eternal crusade, immediately beginning a vicious purge against the new wave of mutation and heresy within the Imperium Sanctus, left in the wake of the Noctis Aeterna. Other crusades redoubled their efforts against the enemies of mankind, and new chapter keeps were raised. It was during this time that Robert Guilliman's torchbearer fleets discovered the Black Templars and delivered the Primaris Space Marines to them. Many thought that the fanatical Black Templars would reject the newcomers, and fearing conflict, Guilliman himself met High Marshal Helbrecht aboard the Eternal Crusader. The High Marshal was in the midst of pursuing the Orc warlord Gazgul Thraka and was impatient to conduct diplomatic matters. In the ensuing meeting, both parties were surprised at the cooperativeness of the other. Guilliman was surprised by the willingness of Helbrecht to recognize the value of the Primaris line, while the High Marshal was interested to find that the Primarch did not turn out to be the commanding despot that he had expected. Guilliman gave Helbrecht the choice of accepting Primaris Space Marines and reminded the High Marshal that he was responsible to the whole of mankind's realm as opposed to his own personal vendettas with the Orcs. In the end, Helbrecht accepted the Primaris into his ranks and promoted a number of his own sword brethren to marshals in order to command new crusades made up of former Grey Shields. Helbrecht's acceptance of the Primaris Space Marines helped convince the various crusade fleets to also incorporate these new warriors into their ranks. However, the incorporation of Primaris Space Marines did not go entirely smoothly for the chapter, most infamously in the Angevin Crusade, where the chapter's Marines mutinied against the arrival of the Primaris, killing a lone Adeptus Custodes in the process. There has been some talk that Black Templars are especially resilient in crossing the Rubicon Primaris, and that this might be a reward for their faith in the Emperor. It is unknown if this is verified fact or simply a rumor. What is known is that the Black Templars, for all their zealotry and extremism, are loyal servants of the Emperor. Across both ends of the torn galaxy, their many fleets continue to battle both as part of larger Imperial campaigns and as unsupported berserkers within besieged lands. Many fleets fight in distant campaigns that, despite their best efforts, will never see relief. In spite of that, the chapter continue to fight on under their 4 oaths. Suffer not the unclean to live, uphold the honor of the Emperor, abhor the witch, destroy the witch, and finally, accept any challenge, no matter the odds. Thank you for listening to this entry from the Warhammer 40,000 Lexicanum.